Konnichiwa Mina, and here is week 12 of the 2018 DCFL season. We then take a look at the week 11 standings when we last left off. Right now, the Indianapolis Rapid Stallions still have a 2-game lead in the conference at 9-2. Then the Jacksonville Scouts at number 2 with the Seattle Tenyo at number 3. Then the Pittsburgh Power, the last playoff spot at 6-5 as they have the tiebreaker over the Chicago Staleys. Then the New York Gangsters have the tiebreaker over the Baltimore Charm and the Phoenix Devils, with the Baltimore Charm having the tiebreaker over the Devils at 5-6. Then it's the Charlotte Bobcats at 4-7, and the Oakland Pillagers last place at 1-10. We then take a look at the schedule for Week 12, as there's a lot of games, big games across the place. First up, the Pittsburgh Power visiting the Baltimore Charm, that has playoff implications. Then the Charlotte Bobcats visiting the New York Gangsters. Then the Phoenix Devils visiting the Chicago Staleys, that has playoff implications. Then the top team against the worst team, the Indianapolis Pillagers against the Oakland Pillagers, I mean to say, and visiting the Indianapolis Rapid Stallions. Then we finish off with the big showdown with the number 2 seed on the line, the Jacksonville Scouts visiting the Seattle Tenyo. So we get the week started with the Pittsburgh Power visiting the Baltimore Charm. Charm beat Pittsburgh earlier this year, as they're trying to get the ultimate tiebreaker and to catch up with everyone after losing 2 games in a row. Meanwhile, Pittsburgh, unbelievable, winning 3 games in a row to be right in the playoff mix once again, as they're going to have a difficult task going against the Charm here on the road. And the Power would get it in overtime, 23-20, as the Charm failed to score in the fourth quarter when we had a 10-point lead and we blew in the overtime. Ugh, that's 3 games in a row we've lost. I probably need to make some changes to the team. But hey, Pittsburgh, not only they won 4 in a row now, and of course now secured their 4th seed again, and depending on what happens this week, maybe they can move up to the 3rd seed perhaps, as they've got almost 500 yards of offense this game and got 3 sacks off of Baltimore. They've had a huge game this week. That was incredible. So good win for them, another tough loss for my Charm. After that, it's the Charlotte Bobcats visiting the New York Gangsters. The Bobcats have now lost, I think 2 in a row, as they're barely trying to keep up with everyone in the playoff race. Meanwhile, the Gangsters lost last week, trying to win to keep up in the playoff race along with everyone else. And the Gangsters would get it 27-19 as they shut them down in the second half. Very high scoring game somewhat in the first half, but it was all New York the last half as they got back to 500, and they got over 450 yards on the Bobcats. Wow, talk about offensive performance for a defensive-oriented team, as the Bobcats barely even got 300 yards. So with that, they're down to 4-8 as the Gangsters move to 6-6 as they're trying to get back into the playoff hunt with the other teams in the playoff mix. It's then the Phoenix Devils visiting the Chicago Staleys, as Phoenix destroyed Chicago when they met back down Phoenix earlier in the year. As the Devils are 5-6, the Staleys are 6-5, as the Staleys are trying to get to 7-5 and be right there with Pittsburgh for the playoff tiebreaker possibly. And the Devils are trying to win to be right there in the playoff mix still, and to get that ultimate tiebreaker with a head-to-head sweep. And Phoenix would get the win 29-19 as they completely shut down Chicago's offense until the 4th quarter. Good God. Even though they only got 2 yards more offense than Chicago, and neither of them got even 375 yards, as Chicago couldn't convert at all on 3rd down. They were only 38% on 3rd down percentage completion, whereas Phoenix got 60%. So a pretty big win for Phoenix, as they now got the ultimate tiebreaker against Chicago, as they're going to move way up into the playoff standings right now. And then it's the Oakland Pillagers visiting the Indianapolis Rapid Stallions, as it's the battle between the worst and the best team in the league, as Indianapolis trying to win to hope for them get a 2.5 game lead over Jacksonville and Seattle and get ready to start talking about getting a playoff spot, as Oakland, after giving Seattle their humiliating defeat last week, trying to win to get right back in the playoff mix, although the odds are against them big time. And Indianapolis would curb stomp them 48-21, getting over 500 yards of offense, as they got to 10-2 and got the first winning season in DCFL history, as Oakland continues to sputter along at 111 in the cellar of the conference. Now Indianapolis is watching carefully for our next game, as it's a huge one as the Jacksonville Scouts visit the Seattle Tenyo with the number 2 seed on the line. Jacksonville destroyed and humiliated Seattle last time they met early in the season, as they're on a roll, winning like I think it was 6 of their last 7 games or something like that. It's unbelievable. Meanwhile, Seattle has lost 3 in a row, including that humiliating loss last week to Oakland, giving them their first win. Although Miami made some offensive changes to the team, hoping that might give them a spark needed to beat Jacksonville, because they're going to need all they can to stop the Jacksonville juggernaut. And Seattle would get it 27-13, ending their 3-game slide as they got the 2nd seed once again. They completely shut down Jacksonville's offense, and it was a defensive struggle as the Tenyo finally got points for once. In fact, they got a touchdown their very first drive of the game. That's desperately needed for them to get some spark back, as Jacksonville couldn't get anything going on 3rd down either. Only got 25% completion and got not even 350 yards of offense, as Seattle's defense completely shut down Jacksonville. 2 sacks, an interception, and 2 forced fumbles with 1 recovering. Wow, big win for them. A tough loss for Jacksonville, but they're still a dominant team, and they need to keep the pedal to the metal to have any shot at getting the playoffs, and maybe even still be considering possibly getting number 1 seed. So we now take a look at the Week 12 standings now at this incredible week. It's Indianapolis still number 1 at 10-2, with Seattle Tenyo being number 2 at 8-4. The Jacksonville Scouts number 3 at 7-5, and then the Pittsburgh Power number 4 at 7-5, with the Devils having the tiebreaker over the Staleys and the Gangsters, and then the Staleys having the tiebreaker over New York. Baltimore's 8th place, the Charlotte Bobcats is 9th, and last place still is Oakland at 1-11. And we got some playoff scenarios. First up, Indianapolis. If they win and Phoenix, Chicago, and New York all lose, they will get a playoff spot, the first one too. That's it though for playoff clinching, but there's also a playoff elimination scenario, of course, and that's Oakland. If they lose or Jacksonville and Pittsburgh win, they are eliminated from the playoffs. Indianapolis still has the number 1 offense, scoring 420 points. The Seattle Tenyo still have the number 1 defense, allowing only 231 points. And the Rapid Stallions have the best point differential at 147 plus. Meanwhile, Oakland has the worst offense, defense, and point differential. And then we take a look at the Week 13 schedule, as we start off with the Baltimore Charm visiting the Phoenix Devils. That could be still pretty big. Then the Pittsburgh Power visiting the Charlotte Bobcats, as Jake's 2 teams go up against each other again. Then the Seattle Tenyo visiting the Chicago Staleys. That has playoff implications. Then the big one, as the Indianapolis Rapid Stallions visit the Jacksonville Scouts. Those 2 had an incredible game last time they met. Oh boy, this will be sick to see this again. And then the New York Gangsters visiting the Oakland Pillagers to finish out Week 13. And with that, Week 12, is in the books. I cannot wait for Week 13, as we're down to just 6 weeks left before the playoffs. And with playoff implications coming up next week, I look forward to that. So see you soon for Week 13.